Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Welcome back, friends. This is Authors Talking Bookish, episode 71. And we are delighted to welcome back to the show for the very first time Grace Sammon, who is releasing a new novel this year that we're so excited for you to hear about. I'm Donna Carbone, and I am joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope.
Hi, Donna. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very excited about today because the author that we're having on, this is her second time here. She's kind of the reason that we have a podcast, I would say. She was our mentor. She sat down and gave us her time, her energy, her thoughts, and most importantly, her encouragement. And that was 3 years ago. And so I'm just thrilled to get to talk to her again. I loved her first book, The Eves, and she's got a new book coming out, and she has such great insights.
Yeah. Let's get her on.
Yeah. Hello, Grace.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I am so thrilled to be here. Look at you, 71 episodes in.
I know, right?
Very exciting and such good episodes.
Thank you. Thank you. We owe a lot to you.
Yes. You definitely had us thinking about things that we had never thought about with a podcast. Everything from a microphone to, I'll never forget, a mission statement. What are you about? And that translated not just for our podcast, but as authors too. What was our brand? So we're so grateful to have you, and we're so excited to talk about your new book.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. And I think that whole concept of branding and just the basic thing of why are we doing this? What is our mission? So I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, before we get started, we're going to give you a little bit of Grace's background. She is an award-winning author, educator, and radio host who centers on storytelling, reinvention, and the power of voice. Recognized in Who's Who in Education and Who's Who in Literature, she is the recipient of the 2025 Indies United Award for Inspirational Women in Literature, Media, and Journalism. Her debut novel, The Eves, marked a major career reinvention and earned critical acclaim. She is now author of 8 books, including the Launchpad series on writing, publishing, and marketing your book, as well as the novel, The Reliable Narrator. She lives in Florida's West Coast with her husband and a small herd of imaginary llamas because every life needs a little magic. We're going to have to talk about that a little bit later.
Well, speaking of magic, I got to read an early copy of The Reliable Narrator, and it still is one of my favorite books I've read this year. It is absolutely amazing, and I can't wait for your readers it'll settle in their hearts, I'm sure. Can you tell us a little bit about it, Grace?
Absolutely. And thank you. You were an early reader, for which I'm so grateful. And you did say it was one of your favorite books. And I thought, but she's reading it so early. There's so many more months. So
it's still in that category.
Thank you. So it's the story about Darby Small, who is a sought after New York City ghostwriter. And she hides behind everyone else's stories because she doesn't believe she has one of her own, until her very vivacious best friend from being 12 years old reaches out and says, it's time to tell our story. And there's a timeline because Phoebe, Darby's best friend, is dying. And together they have to wrestle with whose story is it? How does the story get told? What stories are important to tell at any point in the process of claiming your own voice?
I cannot wait to read this book. I'm going to show up for those who are watching on YouTube. I put up the graphic of her book cover, and you had a great author blurb from one of my favorite authors, Julie Cantrell. And it's an emotionally gripping novel about friendship, loss, and finding the courage to claim your own truths. Grace Sammon creates an unforgettable characters and richly immersive world in the Reliable Narrator, delivering a powerful page-turning read that lingers long after the final chapter and presents great topics for book club discussions. So that's high praise from a best-selling New York Times author.
I was so lucky to have, Julie in my life early on. And she, in some ways, is actually part of the inspiration for the Reliable Narrator, because Julie is a ghostwriter. Even though she's a New York Times bestseller, she's also a ghostwriter. And at one point, she asked me if I could take on some work. And I was fascinated by the idea of being somebody else's voice, getting in their head and getting their message on the page. So I always wanted to write, ever since that experience, a novel about a ghostwriter. And then it just took a couple of years, as you know, for things to fall into place. But I was very lucky that Julie wrote that blurb, and so many other wonderful authors have written blurbs as well. As you know, being in this author community connects us to so many amazing people. And I'm really grateful to all of them who wrote the blurbs.
Yeah, networking is so important in what we do.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about Darby Small and how you came up with this character.
Well, I came up with her, as I said, because Julie Cantrell had this idea of being this ghostwriter. And Julie is such a beautiful author and completely in her own right. She's done TED Talks. She's just amazing. But I was also amazing that somebody who was a New York Times bestseller would also do ghostwriting. So I wanted to do that piece about what it's like to be behind the story. And my problem with getting the story on the page was I couldn't figure out why Darby was a ghostwriter. She's clearly at the top of her field. And when I hit on the fact that it was because she didn't feel she had a story, that her voice had been silenced, she winds up, and we learn in the story that she was sexually abused as a young child, and her mother basically silenced that story. And from there on, she just realized her story didn't matter until it very much did. So for me, it was a story of claiming your voice. And all of us have various challenges, right? You may not have been sexually abused, but we certainly have all had challenges or disturbing things happen or big sadnesses in our lives. And I wanted the story to be about claiming that voice, turning your scars into stars. And that's where the fun began with me in the writing of playing out the story, because Phoebe is flawed too. I love writing flawed characters. So I loved how these two best friends, very different, and flawed in their own ways, but also with great strengths, could come up with a very, hopefully immersive story.
Well, how does Phoebe's terminal illness act as a catalyst for this rekindling of this friendship?
Well, she has such urgency, Hope. She has a story. She is well hidden, even though she's flamboyant as all get out. She drives a pink Jeep. She wears pink cowboy boots. She lives in the absolutely stunning North Valley of New Mexico, around the Albuquerque area. But she has such urgency. She has some things that are fractured within her own family. She feels she hasn't been honest even with Darby about certain things. So there's a piece for me, and I love this in my writing as well, and in anybody else's writing. I like when there's an intergenerational cost or an intergenerational bridge. So Darby has this big arc with her own mother, Teresa, not Mother Teresa, but her mother, who was named Teresa. And there's a big emotional arc with her own mom, but Phoebe has her own issues with her own kids. So it's about building those connections. And it's not like it's a happily ever after story. It's really about how do we work through these things in loving ways and challenge our own growth.
One of my favorite aspects of the book, which I know we've talked about before, is the inclusion of Virginia and Leonard Woolf as Darby's muse. You want to talk to us a little bit about how did you come up with that idea, and how do those real life people play into your story?
I was hoping you would bring that up, because that's just, for me, one of the quirkier things. I had no plan on doing that. And I'm very fond of Virginia Woolf's book, A Room of Her Own, right? So Virginia Woolf, had this whole thing that women could not write unless they had a space of their own. So Darby is also enamored of that. And she has on her desk at home this beautifully framed picture of Virginia and Leonard. And she has a copy of a first edition, A Room of Your Own. And all of a sudden, as you know, this happens, you're both authors, the characters started talking. And I thought, Virginia Woolf, what an amazing character. She, as most of your readers probably know, she wound up killing herself in a very dramatic way. She puts pebbles in her pocket and walks into a river or a stream. And I started becoming fascinated by what would have gone on in her head, what would have gone on in Leonard's head. I loved, and as we all know too, you go down a massive rabbit hole. So I now know so much more about Virginia and Leonard Woolf than I ever thought. I love the idea that they were basically self-published. They started a publishing house in their dining room and they published lots of famous people. But what was that like to be that troubled? And for Leonard to be her muse and he's the one who really kept her story alive. I would bet that none of us would know very much about Virginia Woolf and her writing if it had not been for Leonard. So they began to take on a whole life of their own. They did turn into Darby's muses. And they also put in this beautiful, I think, dry sense of British humor. Because the book deals with some heavy subjects. And all of a sudden, Leonard and Virginia will just say things that both ground you and make you laugh.
And that are so in character with who we know them to be. Yeah.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit because your first work of fiction, I was lucky enough to read, and I won a copy of this book. And you did such a wonderful an autographed copy, and you sent the kind of cute little book swag, and that was really kind of, that was right before my book came out, and I was so impressed with what you did, and I was like, okay, I need to remember this. But talk to us about this book, this beautiful book called The Eve. Beautiful, sad, just overwhelming in all the ways I demand my beloved books to be. And that was from our dear friend, Barbara Connery.
Absolutely. And Barbara is such an amazing author. She just came out, I think, with book number 3, 4.
Yeah.
Please check out all Barbara Connery's books. The Eves was a story that I wrote because I thought I was done, which, as we talk about this now, it's going to be so funny. I was winding up an education career of 29 years. My children were adults. My mom had passed. My dad was elderly. And I just thought, what am I going to do in this second, third, whatever chapter of my life? So I wrote a book about a woman who was struggling with those kinds of issues. What does it mean when you feel you're done? What does it mean when the roles that you have embraced your whole life of daughter, mother, worker are all stripped away from you? So I played with that in the book and thought I was done. And then a whole series of podcasts similar to yours at the time came my way, which was lovely. And one of them was Spunky Old Broad Radio. And I just absolutely loved it. And after the radio show, the woman called me up and said, you need to have your own radio show. And I said, oh, no, I'm done. I'm done. And she said something that really has resonated with me since, and even in the Reliable Narrator. She said, have your characters taught you nothing? You are not done.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much my characters were teaching me. And in The Eves, your youngest character is 15. Your oldest one is about 93. They're women of color. They're colorful women. It was a book very close to my heart.
How, you're saying this, and I know that you thought about the idea of not writing another fiction novel after The Eves. And I think it's interesting that the main character in the Reliable Narrator isn't sure she wants to write Phoebe's story. Did you put any of your own personal feelings during that time period into Darby's character?
Yes, I think that, Carl Jung talks about when you dream, everybody in your dream is really you. You may be dreaming about somebody else, but it's really an aspect of yourself. And
Yeah.
I think that was very true for me in the Eves, and it was certainly true for me in Reliable Narrator. Darby very much is struggling with the fast-paced changing of the publishing industry.
Mm.
And it's amazing at how quickly, just in the 5 years since the Eves came out, how much the industry has changed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think some of the things that Darby wrestles with about the industry are definitely things that I've wrestled with. The whole AI question, Darby has a brother who has something like 45 books out. Well, my
Mm.
brother actually does have 45 books out,
Mhm.
but and he's currently working on AI as issues in terms of photography. His name is Rick Sammon, and he's amazing in the photographic field. But Darby also wrestles with, is it okay to use AI? When is it okay to use AI? And I think those are conversations I've had with many of my author friends. Is it okay to have the blurb at the back of your book written by AI, but not a chapter? Where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
So there are certainly those kinds of issues that have resonated with me in Darby, and also in the story that she and Phoebe tell together. What is, how do you effectively communicate other people's stories?
Yeah.
Well, we alluded to it earlier in the show. You don't only write fiction. You authored multiple books, including Launchpad. And Launchpad is about publishing and writing and marketing. What motivated you to do that? What motivated you to do Launchpad?
Well, back to the lady from Spunky Old Broads. She told me I need to have my own radio show. So I created a radio show called The Storytellers. Then after that, I really realized, just as you did with this amazing podcast, so many new authors don't really know how to launch a book and how to successfully market a book. I learned so much in the publishing of the Eves. I had 3 books out before that in the area of education. I thought those would have been the hard launch because they needed to be juried and they needed to be assessed by university presses. Writing a novel was much harder, and launching it successfully. So I realized how much I didn't know. So I created a second radio show called Launchpad, and it was for debut authors or authors who were just debuting a book. And it was to give them a format and a forum to talk about their writing. And just one other leg up, I would hope that part of my brand is to help other people leave their mark on the world and to always be a collaborator. So once we started doing the show, I realized, boy, people really don't know. And I went to Mary Helen Sheriff, who's a good friend of ours, and I said, oh, Mary, it'll be a light lift. Let's just get a bunch of authors we know. And we got 40 authors to write 3 different books on Launchpad, the countdown to marketing, writing, publishing, and marketing your book. And I just mentioned a few minutes ago about how quickly the industry is changing. I think the writing one is 100% still solid. The publishing one, very, very solid, but things are changing quickly. In the past 2 years, I've seen so many authors who are traditionally published buying back their rights and going a self-publishing route. Or an indie route. And the marketing piece has changed as well. I'm not sure if I was right. And those books came out 3 years ago, I think. I'm not sure if I wasn't doing it today, I wouldn't do it all like in apps or something. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. They have a lot of great downloads in them, which are wonderful to paste around. I've got Post-it notes everywhere. So those are really, really helpful, all the downloads. But it's such a changing industry. So I think, hope to answer your question, it was really about trying to continue to help other authors find their voice.
Yeah.
And as 2 authors who were on that show, and we are both, I know I can speak for Hope, eternally grateful for you supporting us. And that definitely will be part of your legacy.
Thank you.
And I think that for me, we were so young, not young, but we were young at authors and writers, but it's so important about building the community and also helping others after someone's helped you. Now I write blurbs for other authors, and I try to do whatever I can. But you really instilled, I think, in both Donna and myself about the importance of building a community and supporting each other. And so I think that that's something that anyone who, if you only have one page written and you're thinking about going into this business, to really start thinking about ways you can build a community.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you're so right. And also reaching out to different groups. Donna's doing some book coaching now. I've done some book coaching, and just reaching out to critique groups, getting feedback, asking that question early on. Why am I writing this book? What audience? And what does success look like? I think all of us would love that New York Times bestseller around our name with the Netflix contract. And we certainly know those people. And one of the nice things about this community is we might be jealous, but we're not in a bad way.
No, I would agree. And I also feel like you just gave me an idea for a podcast episode.
Oh, good.
Oh, nice.
Defining success, different degree, because my definition of success has changed wildly from before I had my first novel published.
Yeah.
So can you define your success, what success
Well,
means?
I think I feel like I have been successful. And if this is all I ever do, I'm happy at what I've accomplished.
Yes.
With the community that, I am part of, and hopefully that I've created, and the podcast and the books that I've put out. Like you said, we all would love to be on the New York Times list. I think we would all love to be adapted, but if that is not in the cards, I'm good.
Yeah. Well,
I have good success.
I have to go back to the imaginary llamas. I said I was going to ask you about it. Tell us about these imaginary llamas, and is this imagination role play? Does it help your writing process?
One of the things that I love to do is make space as much a character as the people. And one of the places I really wanted to live before I married my fabulous husband and we stayed in Florida was I wanted to live on the eastern shore of Maryland on the beautiful Chesapeake Bay. And that's a place that I really created in the eaves because I wanted to be there. So, and there are a lot of llamas there. Unfortunately, I can't have llamas here, but there's a big part of me that wants llamas. So I love the idea of creating a sense of place. I do think everybody's life should have a little bit of magic in it. And since I can't have real llamas, I might as well have imaginary ones. But a lot of it is that it's a little bit of whimsy, but I love to create a strong sense of place so that when you walk into Darby's house or Phoebe's house, you know where the coffee cups are. You know where the blanket is that she's going to grab if she gets chilled. You know where the dog bowls are that Roy is going to come in and fill. So. And
you do that nicely.
Thank you.
Yes, you do.
I have one last question for you. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. What is one thing that you learned the hard way?
I think I'm still learning it, and it's balance.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely balance. Right now, we're just before the launch of Narrator. I'm writing a couple of articles for a couple of different places. I'm not posting as much as I should on the socials. I'm 17,000 words into another novel. But that sounds great, but I haven't written a word, I think, since February. So it's finding a balance of the time. When I wrote The Eaves, it was a solo project. I didn't do all of the social things. So certainly there's the huge learning curve of how do you get yourself out there as a successful author, and how, regardless of how you define success. Right. But I think finding the balance so that you still have a personal life, and that you balance your writing and your publications work around that. So balance, balance, balance.
That is great advice. Advice that I need to work on myself. So here at our little podcast, we wanted to get to know authors. We want to talk about your books and about your creative process, but we also want to get to know you on a personal level. So we started this new segment called Rapid Fire Questions. There's nothing to be afraid of. These are very easy, but it kind of gets a little bit, so we get to know you as a person. So I'm going to go first.
Okay.
What is your favorite writing playlist? Do you have a writing playlist?
I do not. I don't. I tend not to listen to music, not even in my car, which is funny because Jessica in the Eves, there's actually a playlist printed. There's a sound playlist that you can listen to on my website. No, I don't.
Okay.
Who is your favorite fictional character?
Oh, my favorite fictional character. The second Mrs. Demurier in Rebecca.
Okay.
Okay, so are you a pen and paper kind of writer, or are you a laptop lady? Laptop.
Keyboard all the way.
Yeah.
Well, except for Post-it notes. I mean,
Yeah.
Post-it notes everywhere. But in terms of writing, I can't even write on my iPad. It has to be on my laptop.
We just did an episode about different kinds of brainstorming, and I thought about you when we talked about Post-it notes.
Mm-hmm.
What is your guilty pleasure when it comes to books?
When it comes to books,
Yeah.
I would say I'm beginning to read a little bit more magical realism, a little bit of sci-fi stuff that I never thought I would read. And I'm enjoying the escapism of that.
Yeah.
I just had the opportunity, though, to host a Readers Fest in Fort Myers, Florida, with 25 New York Times bestsellers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so amazing to be with all of them. I want to tell you, I want to read every single one of their books.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, so if you could have dinner with any author, it could be, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, alive, it would be the two of you. Virginia and Leonard.
Yeah.
Especially now that I've written about them, I so want to hang out with them.
You have questions.
I have so many questions.
What's your favorite time of day to write?
Morning for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I find if I get up and exercise and then get to my desk, I can have a pretty productive day, and that may then turn into a full day of writing. If I don't strike that balance early on, I fritter away part of the morning. I don't get as productive. I do like it, though, when, I think I'm done for the day and I popped into bed. And I'm sure you've had this experience. Like, I have a favorite sentence in my book. I have a favorite sentence in each of my books. And they came to me literally while I turned off the light and I went, so I'm not going to bed yet.
Do you get up and write them down, or do you speak them into your phone?
During the writing of the Eves, I didn't do either. And that was a mistake because you don't necessarily remember that brilliant sentence. I now get up and I write them down.
Yeah. I speak them into my phone, and my husband turns and looks at me like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. The phone is the best thing for me, because if it just speak into it real quick. Okay, if you could write either in a cozy corner, or do you want to be in a busy cafe?
Cozy corner.
Okay. And Donna, what's our last one?
What is your favorite beverage while writing?
Very different. I don't drink when I write.
Not
Nothing.
even coffee,
Nothing.
not water, nothing.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
It's a good excuse to get up.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good excuse to get up and move a thought, move a muscle, move around. So no, I don't have anything at my desk.
Do you find when you get up, thoughts come to you between like writing sessions?
Sometimes it's I use it more for dialogue.
Yeah.
More than for plot. I think when I walk around, I think, well, what would she have said?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Well, Grace, we could sit here and talk to you all day. And we so appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to give us some insights. Cannot wait to read this book. And I am sure our audience are very excited about it as well. And where can they find you on social media and your website?
Well, my website is right at the bottom if they're watching visually. It's gracesammon.net. And it's not spelled like the fish, but it's said that way. So you can find me on gracesammon.net. You can find me mostly on Facebook. I just decided to dive back into LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm not on any of the others yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Grace has been very gracious in offering to give away one of her new novels coming out. And in order to qualify, you need to sign up for our newsletter on www.authorstalkingbookish.com and Grace Sammon's on www.gracesammon.com by June 1st.
.net.
Oh, I'm sorry, .net. I read it wrong. I am going to, this will be available in the show notes, and we'll also post it on our Instagram. So you can find it there. But I promise you, you want a copy of this book. And I also would bet money that it's one of your favorites that you read this year.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you so much for doing that, and cannot wait. And as always, everyone, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and on Instagram, or go to our website at authorstalkingbookish.com. And before we leave very quickly, Donna, what is our next episode?
So our next episode, we are going to be in conversation with author Wendy Holler, who is a writer of poetry, children's books, and adult fiction.
Oh, can't wait for that. And Grace, again, thank you so much for your time today and for your time for the past 4 years. We've been blessed to have you in our lives.
You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Always wonderful to talk. Love you.
Love you too.
Love you. Thank you so
Have
much.
a good day.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.